all the AI models are getting faster, they're becoming cheaper, and they're becoming more capable. A lot of the conversations 3 years ago were all around the risk about it. That fear has completely changed into excitement. How do I start going from pilots to actually scaling AI projects? Not just for operational efficiency, how do I drive growth using AI? Don't just use AI in isolated tasks. Use it to completely reimagine your process.
What I'm hearing from you is it's an enablement play. It's very much a human in the loop play. It's not a replacement play. Is that a fair way to look at it?
Welcome to StitchStudio's Pilot to Production. In this series, we're interviewing insurance executives, investors, and consultants to hear real stories of how the industry is operationalizing AI in insurance. From carriers and brokerages to technology partners and investors, you'll gain practical insights, implementation strategies, and lessons learned from the leaders driving enterprise-scale adoption, moving from pilots to implementing responsible, predictable, and explainable AI. I'm Karan Mishra, CEO of StitchStudio, and this is Pilot to Production.
Rima, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. For the folks listening to this, Rima is a principal with PwC, and she's responsible for data and AI for the Americas. Rima, welcome again. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Karan. It's great to be here.
Of course, Rima, wouldn't have it any other way. Well, Rima, let's get into it, right? You have a very unique vantage point, actually, because you've spent a lot of time in the insurance sector, but now you're looking at data and AI across sectors. Of course, AI is the flavor of the day when it comes to everybody talking about it. What kind of conversations are you having with clients in the market, and where is people's head at with AI?
You know, it's really interesting, Karan. A lot of the conversations 3 years ago, or even 2 years ago, I would say, were all around the risk about it, especially with insurance, right? Because a lot of the insurance carriers are thinking, we're highly regulated. I don't know if we can really adopt this and expand it across the organization. That fear has completely changed into excitement. And insurance carriers have gone from, let me set up the right governance to, yes, we've got that. How do I start going from pilots to actually scaling AI projects? A great time to be in the insurance industry because they're really looking at every function and saying, how could I leverage AI to drive more value here? The only other thing I'll call out is there are a few tier one insurers who are saying, not just for operational efficiency, how do I drive growth using AI? Right?
Interesting.
How do I drive new revenue channels and monetize that as well? Because otherwise the conversation gets limited to back office efficiencies.
That is a really interesting point of view, Rima. I haven't really had that conversation a lot. And as we kind of go through it, maybe we can double click a little bit on sort of how people are thinking about using it for growth versus just operational efficiency. But going back to your comment around pilot to production, right? Which is, of course, a theme we are going after as well. All the excitement that you're hearing around AI and moving from pilot to production, what do you think are the other big things that clients should keep in mind, or even others in the industry should keep in mind as they think of making that transition from pilot to production?
What I'll say is, to start with, all the AI models are getting faster, they're becoming cheaper, and they're becoming more capable.
Mm-hmm.
So the technology is not going to be the blocker for us. When we think about pilot to production, it's going to be, how do you apply the right change management? How do you apply the right adoption tactics? Because if you drive frustration among the operations resources that are using it, they're just going to be like, I'll just go back to the old ways of working. So it's extremely important to think about the organizational change management tied to it too. And we're seeing that more and more. We're seeing it being not just a technology function,
Mm-hmm.
or within the office of the CIO or CTO, or even the chief AI officer, to it becoming a business imperative, saying, we need to reimagine this particular functional area. How are we going to do that using AI as an enabler, but also other technologies in this space? So it's going to be a toolkit of different tools that come together to ultimately drive value in this.
That's interesting, Rima, that you say that, right? I agree with you. I think it's going to be a bunch of tools in the toolkit that are going to solve the problem. I do agree with you. There is a significant adoption curve associated with it, going back to your comment on organizational change management. How do you think talent and the availability of talent, particularly in our industry, right, when it comes to something like that, how do you think the talent either needs to evolve or needs to shift based on what we are seeing with AI?
Now, a lot of the roles in insurance will evolve with this. I think right now, the carriers need to focus on really driving upskilling and driving adoption of these AI capabilities. Because in the absence of that, the talent will keep doing the things they're doing. I'll just take an example, right? To train a disability and absence claims specialist, it takes anywhere between 3 to 6 months right now. There's hundreds of thousands of policies and procedures across all the different products involved within insurance. And if you have to train it just on disability and absence, even with all the state and regulatory laws, it gets extremely complex. Now, if you were to leverage AI to give them the right level of information at the points that matter, it would make it a lot easier for them to do their role well and also drive personalization when they're interacting with claimants. So that's just one example where I think the experts are always going to be required. I keep saying a claims specialist will turn into a claims orchestrator, where they're focusing a lot more on the complex claims and focusing on the customer, as opposed to collecting information, checking missing information, trying to check eligibility and liability as well. Their job is going to become reviewing things and validating whether it's in the right direction, and then being in that moment that matters with the customer. And then for the junior resources that come in, if training gets easier, it's going to be a lot faster for them to be in the business, on the floor, working through the process, as opposed to spending a ton of time in documentation.
That is really cool. And Rima, as you were talking about that, right? It almost sounds like, and I think that has been a shift as well, right? I think there's a lot of hype around AI taking away people's jobs and things like that. But what I'm hearing from you is it's an enablement play. It's very much a human in the loop play. It's not a replacement play. Is that a fair way to look at it?
It is absolutely an enablement play. And I would say it even will amplify the people that adopt it well, right? And it'll amplify their skill set and allow them to do a lot more, a lot faster.
Really interesting. I'm going to go back to something, Rima, that you said at the outset, right? Because I'm still very intrigued about the back office versus growth. Again, right, with whatever you're comfortable sharing, could you talk a little bit about, like, what are some of the ideas, if you will, on the growth side of the house, or concepts that people are exploring using AI?
Some of the concepts have been around how do we drive more hyper-personalized enrollment capabilities, for example, to drive higher enrollment into products as well for our group insurance customers. Another one is where they're saying, instead of taking 2+ weeks to drive the quoting process, could I do it in a day or less? And will that improve my close ratios and win rate there? Right? There's another one where the clients are thinking, what are some other capabilities too, whether it's related to financial wellness, mental wellness, and others? How do I bring an ecosystem of services to my clients and monetize that by leveraging AI to give a consistent experience to the customer or to the employee, right, within those employers? So those are all just different ways. Another one is a benefits bot. Where customers are saying, can I offer benefits bots to my B2B employers? And how will it help them drive more adoption and ultimately more premium for us as well? So those are just some examples of how insurers are thinking about monetization, leveraging AI too, as opposed to just operational efficiency.
That is amazing, Rima. I think you've given the audience a few different ideas on what they should be thinking about from an AI perspective. I have one final question for you before we wrap up. You've shared a lot of wonderful insights. What is the one thing that you would want people to take away from the conversation we've had?
The one thing I'll say is, don't just use AI in isolated tasks. We have a tendency to do that and find the low-hanging fruit. Use it to completely reimagine your process, because that is what it is capable of doing. If you want to drive true return on investment from it, it'll be best served when you completely reimagine, whether it's claims, whether it's contact centers, whether it's underwriting, but take a process end to end and say, if I were to do it AI native or AI first, what could that look like?
That is really interesting, and I think that's wonderful to leave people with. Rima, thank you very much for your time again. We really appreciate having you here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching. You can subscribe to our show on YouTube or by following us on LinkedIn. And please consider giving us a rating or a review so it helps others to find our show. Visit StitchStudio.ai to learn more about our applied AI solution built for insurance. See you soon.